When we talk about how cells work, we usually start with the membranes because the membranes controls what enters the cell and what leaves the cell. And this control decides how the cell behaves. And once we understand how substances move across the membranes, it becomes easier to understand why cells have electrical charges and how they send signals to other cells. So, this lecture connects all three ideas in a simple way that shows how they depend on each other. Every cell needs a steady flow of nutrients coming in and waste going out. And the membranes is the structure that manages all of this. And if the movement stops, the cell cannot survive for long. And because different substances need different types of pathways to cross the membranes, the body uses many transport methods, and understanding these methods help you see why cells maintain a certain internal environment. And this becomes important when you think about nerve cells, muscle cells, and other cells that depend on specific ion levels. Passive transport is the simplest way things move across the membranes because it does not need energy. And it happens when substances move from a high concentration to a low concentration. The same way perfume spreads in a room, and this includes simple diffusion, where small molecules pass directly through the membranes, and facilitated diffusion, where substances use special protein channels because they cannot pass through the lipid layer on their own. And the reason the cell does not spend energy here is because the movement follows natural concentration gradients. Osmosis is a special type of passive transport that deals with water, and water moves toward the side where there are more dissolved particles because the cell is always trying to balance concentration. And when water moves in or out, the cell either swells or shrinks. And this can become a serious issue if the change is too much. So the body works hard to control the fluid environment to protect the cells. And this simple movement of water plays a role in many processes, including how kidneys handle fluid balance. Active transport works differently because it uses energy to move substances from low concentration to high concentration. And this is something cells do when they need to keep certain ions at specific levels inside the cell. And the best example is the sodium potassium pump, where the cells send sodium ions out and bring potassium ions in. And this constant pumping maintains the electrical charge of the cell. And this charge becomes important later when we talk about electrical potentials and nerve impulses. There are times when the cell needs to move larger materials that cannot pass through channels or pumps. And for that, the cell uses vesicles, which are small membrane pockets. And this process includes endocytosis, where the cell brings materials in, and endocytosis, where the cell sends material out. And cells use these methods for things like releasing hormones, taking in nutrients, and removing waste that cannot leave through smaller pathways. Every cell has an electrical potential across its membranes, meaning one side has a slightly different charge than the other. And this difference exists mainly because of the movement of ions like sodium, potassium, and chloride. And when the cell maintains more negative charge inside compared to outside, we call it the resting membrane's potential. And this potential is crucial for nerve and muscle cells because they use electrical changes to send signals. And the body spends energy to maintain these ion levels because without this charge, communication between cells would not happen. An action potential is a rapid shift in electrical charge that travels along a nerve or a muscle cell, and it starts when the cell is stimulated and sodium rushes in, making the inside less negative. And once this happens, the signal moves along the cell like a wave. And after the signal passes, potassium leaves the cell to bring the charge back to its resting state. And this simple movement of sodium and potassium is what allows you to think, move, feel, and respond. So, even though the process is small, the effect on the body is huge. Cells communicate by sending signals to each other, and these signals can be chemicals like hormones or neurotransmitters, or electrical signals like action potentials. And communication allows the body to coordinate actions. So, one cell can tell another cell when to start or stop a task, and this keeps tissues and organs working in a synchronized way. And when signals are clear and accurate, the body works smoothly. But when signals are weak or incorrect, it can lead to problems in different systems. Chemical massagers allow cells to communicate over short or long distances, and the type of messenger depends on what the body needs. And neurotransmitters act quickly and work between nerve cells, while hormones move through the blood and act on distant cells for slower but longer lasting effects. The cells rely on receptors to receive these messages, and if the receptor does not match the signal, the message is ignored, which helps the body control communication in a precise way.